my business can ebb and flow with my life.
Am I doing what I want to do or what people told me I should do?
Let me just put this out there and see what sticks.
I personally do not prescribe to business growth at all cost. And what is more important is that you make decisions based on your values and how you choose to grow your business, how you choose to get that promotion and why. And every time you say yes, you're saying no to something else. And that is what we're going to deep dive into today, is how your decisions, when they are value and aligned based, feel lighter and better. And saying no is kind of fun. See you inside. Independence isn't just about where you go. It's about how well you live when you get there. That's why I am genuinely excited about Indie Stove, because it completely changes what outdoor and off-grid cooking looks like. Indie Stove is an ultra-portable, collapsible stove that fits basically anywhere, but performs like a real kitchen tool. It heats up in minutes, holds up in wind, rain, and rugged terrain, and works with multiple fuel sources, propane, butane, or wood pellets. So you're never limited by where you are and what's available. But here's where it gets fun. This isn't just about boiling water. With Indie Stove's modular accessories, you can actually cook. The workspace stack gives you sturdy side sleeves, so your cookware, ingredients, and tools are right there when you need them most. No balancing acts, no chaos. The skewer stack lets you grill kebabs, vegetables, or skewered meals evenly with non-sag skewers designed for real heat control. And yes, people are baking chocolate chip cookies off the grid. Fresh cookies in the middle of nowhere. That is not survival, that's luxury. Indie Stove is built for people who want freedom without giving up quality. Real meals, real control, real independence. Whether you're camping, overlanding, prepping for emergencies, or just choosing a life that isn't tied to outlets and crowded kitchens. And because you're a Revenue Rascals listener, you get something extra. Use code Revenue Rascals at checkout and you'll receive a free workspace stack with your purchase of a stove, valued at $120. That's Revenue Rascals at indiestove.com. Because independence should taste incredible. Hello, Rascals, and welcome back to another episode. And I am so excited to have my friend Ashlee Sang with us today. We're going to talk about messaging, marketing, but honestly, what I'm most excited to talk to you about is the evolution of your business, with now the focus on decision-making for entrepreneurs and business owners. And just so everybody knows, this is one of those interviews that I'm like, wow, I've been in this game for a long time, because I'm pretty sure that we have been friends for maybe 5 years at this point.
Something
and to
like
me,
that.
right? Doesn't that just kind of blow your mind in this world of entrepreneurship? So Ashlee, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you, and share just a little bit of a brief introduction about who you are and what you care about in this crazy entrepreneur world.
Yeah, thank you. So I am Ashlee Sang. I am the person behind Ashlee Sang Consulting, and I've done sort of everything under the sun related to comms, marketing, messaging, brand building, and all paths have led toward values alignment and ultimately decision making. So being the best founder, CEO, leader, in whatever capacity you want to be through your business, in your business, so that you can feel really good about the work that you show up to do every single day, and so that your business can be this mechanism for good. When you ask what I care about so much, all the things. And what I love about business is that we're able to direct all of the causes that we care about, all of the people that we care about, all of the revenue making that we need to do to be able to be a force of nature in this world. And we're able to do it on our own terms with people who understand what we're building. And the more that we make as conscientious, values-driven leaders, the more we're able to pour into the people and causes that we care about most. So it's really individual, but it's also highly collective. And that makes me feel really, really excited every single day when I think about brand building and business building.
I love that so much. It was probably maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. I had a real serious sit down with myself. And I was like, what, Michelle, do you want out of this business? And I think that's an important reflection question because I'm a high performer and I'm a first child. I'm the oldest in my family. Like all the stereotypes of like, the go-getter, the carrot chaser, the money, the impact, everything. Like I am so stereotypical when it comes to that. And I had a thought several years ago where I'm like, am I doing what I want to do or what people told me I should do based on what I'm good at? And that was a soul awakening moment for myself. And what I determined is I actually don't want a $10 million business. Do I build other people's $10 million businesses all day long with my eyes closed? But I see what it takes to do that. And there are always compromises. And for me, I want to be a present mom. I want to have a gorgeous and beautiful social life. I want to spend time with my husband. And I don't want things to get too big where that becomes really hard. So I'm wondering, Ashlee, like it sounds like you had that come to Jesus moment and now you're sharing that with the world as well.
Yeah, for me, it has sort of been inherent or an undercurrent. I'm also firstborn. I'm an only, but I'm very typical, like eldest daughter, high achiever. And any personality test I've ever taken, if advocate is an option, that is the one I fall under. I've just always been inherently this cause champion, this we can do better, we can be better, we can have better. And so it is just in my nature to want to bring out the best in people, to want to make the most of any situation, sometimes to a detriment. I'm definitely a fixer when, some things are just not meant to be fixed. But also, I'm a firm believer that we show up to the best of our ability every single day because we do have ripple effects. It does matter how we hold ourselves, what we stand for, who we talk with, how we talk to them. Yeah, it's been a sort of undercurrent always my entire career. But then also, I feel like every entrepreneur, well, everyone I've spoken to at least, and for sure in my case, we all have these pivot points. And it's sort of amazing how quickly we can box ourselves into something when we were, quote unquote, seeking freedom to begin with. It's really easy to just follow those best practices or just follow the model of someone who, they look like they have it together, so I should probably do it that way too. But our brains work so differently. Our values are so different. Our capacity is so different. And the phase of life we're in, you talked about being a mother. I have 2 very small children, and that is a big part of everything in my life. It is really, really important to me and something I never take for granted that my business can ebb and flow with my life. And also it's something I can always hang on to contribute to a much larger picture than simply my household and my little orbit that I have.
Yes. You know what I love is a word that you mentioned, and it's capacity. And I believe people are born with different levels of capacity. So there's that era. So you just are a high performer or high capacity or not, period. Your personality drives it. I do think that you can work to improve it, but I actually think some of it is just what you're born with. But 2, for capacity, also, it's the season of life that you're in. So your natural capacity is either upped or lowered based on your other obligations outside of work. Right? So for me, there's those 2 components. And once I realized that, once I had that moment with myself, it was a really great moment where I respected certain people's boundaries or relationships or what they were doing in their business based on their capacity level. And I've had ebbs and flows too. Like when we moved across the country to New York and then back to Park City from California, it was all over the place. There's only so much you can do without going absolutely insane. So that's what I love, the ability to pivot, not just like your messaging and who you stand for, but your offers as well. So I'd love to hear, like in your consulting business, maybe like the last times that you've helped someone make a pivot that they thought was going to be hard, but you helped them feel comfortable with that pivot and excited for that through the decision-making process.
Okay, I'm thinking of my friend and client who does events, and she had been wanting to up her capacity through team building, which again is the right fit for some people and is totally the wrong fit for other people, right? But she wanted this really sort of large, dependable pool of team members to be able to host larger events, staff larger events, etc. And so she had been dreaming up these offers. She had been sitting on her website copy for literally years. We all have those projects, right? That we're just like, oh, one day we're going to fix this. One day we're going to do this. And we were able to knock out in a couple live sessions, okay, here's exactly what we want the website to say. Here is exactly how it's going to look. Here's the launch email to say, hey, email list, this is what we have on offer now. And so a lot of times that decision making is reflecting back, holding space, offering empathetic accountability, and being that outside perspective because we are just so close to it. The words, it's sort of like when you hear the same word over and over and it starts to lose any sense. It's kind of the same with anything in our business, right? We've stared at the problem from every angle, or we're stuck in the same angle and all we need to do is turn 5 degrees and all of a sudden we see, the keyhole or something like that. We were able to kind of relaunch her website in a way that really positioned herself as an events production company rather than a solo event planner. And then we were able to do continued work to really scope out offers and position those based on what her ideal client would want and need from her and what language they would speak to understand how it is that they can best work together.
Yes, I love that so much. And and it's interesting because when you're a consultant or you're a coach or a mentor or an advisor, you have to be really careful not to apply your values to your clients. You need to make that a really clear line. So something that they may want that I don't, I shouldn't be value pushing on them because then they're going to be out of alignment. And I think it's been a really interesting thing for me to observe, especially in the online entrepreneur space, of where people try to force themselves in to a certain way of doing things or a style because some guru told them that's the way that you make money and build a business. And people don't fail at doing it because they're not trying or not capable. It's because they're out of alignment and it doesn't feel good and they don't want to do it. And I think it's really important that, you can feel it in your stomach. When I make decisions, I feel it in my stomach. Is that where you feel it or where do you feel it?
I think so. Yeah. So are you a generator in human design?
Yeah, I'm a manifesting generator.
Okay, yeah, I'm a generator, and also I tend to overthink. I tend to live in my head when I should be living in my gut. So I do all of the pros and cons lists and the spreadsheets and the research, and I have banks of all the things, and then I just make a decision with my gut that I would have known 24 tabs ago. So yes, I do feel it in my gut, but also I have a hard time listening to that sometimes.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, for me, there's a lot of things I'm good at listening with my gut with, and then others I do end up still doing, like the T-chart, the pros and the cons, and what's the worst case scenario? That is usually what I do. I'm when I'm making a big decision, I'm if this is the worst case possible outcome, am I still okay saying yes to it because I believe in it enough to give it a try?
That's a really great gauge. I also know about best case scenario journaling, which is obviously the inverse of that. And I really like that idea too of well, what's everything that could go right? If, this might be a hard step or this might feel like a scary decision, but also what could this lead to? I like both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, I like that too. I've actually never done positive outcome journaling or whatever you just said, but that sounds really interesting. So I might need to Google that. I bought a really beautiful journal for the year from a local store around here, but I'm not great at journaling. But I felt like if I bought the beautiful journal, I would like actually do it. So it's been intermittent, but it's kind of fun. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the decision-making and conscious decision-making and understanding the impact. I know it's been this undercurrent for you throughout all of the work that you've done, but let's talk specifically to why it's driving you right now to share your processes and your methods around building a brand, your messaging, your marketing, but also really feeling aligned with those decisions.
It's sort of a culmination of all of the experiences I've had working with clients for years and years and years now. I took my business full time at the beginning of 2019, but I was freelancing on the side before that. So I was hired help, especially in the beginning. I still am in some capacity, but I'm definitely a strategic advisor these days. But in the beginning, I was hired to, can you write this social media post? Will you write this blog post? Will you redo this website? And there was no strategy behind it. They were throwing money at a problem. The first person that came along that would raise their hand or could do it better than them. And it wasn't impactful because there was no intention behind it. There was no values alignment and there was no strategy. So then I pivoted to doing more strategy work. And that also coincided with having my first kiddo. So I was like, all right, I'm only going to do intensives, strategy intensives. You can do 1 hour, you can do 1 day, and we're going to get this strategy and we're going to lay it out and then you're going to be set. And then I realized that a strategy is only as good as it is implemented. And the implementation takes a lot of effort. It also takes some translation. I've literally had tears of joy from my clients when they see the brand messaging strategy. And then nothing changes in their outreach, in their website copy, in their social content, in wherever they're showing up. Nothing changes because they haven't internalized the strategy or because they don't know how to make decisions around the values that we outline and the audience that we outline and all the things that go into a strategy. So I'm really wanting to then go maybe not further upstream, but sort of in between the implementation and the strategy, and go to where the decisions are made on the day-to-day, because those day-to-day decisions add up. And as CEO of your company, of your family, of your life, no matter what situation you have, you are making decisions all day long. So if we have that shortcut that's very, very pre-thought out, and you've already poured so much intention, attention, care, and detail into what is it that I care about most. Then you can use those values. So I recommend establishing what they are, defining how they specifically manifest in you and your business, because transparency to me might mean something completely different to you, even if we have that shared value. And then think about all the ways it can be applied to your business. So 3 steps to values alignment: establish, define, and apply. And that application phase is really where all the decision making is made. And it is always better with outside perspective, whether you have a coach, whether you have an advisor, whether you have a mastermind, even a business bestie, whatever capacity, someone to get you out of your head and reflect back to you. But you said this is important. You said these are your people. That doesn't seem aligned. Or, you said this is why are you hesitating? This is checking all the boxes, right? So the decision-making element is essential for the impact to be made and for the revenue to come, for the resources to not be wasted. We only have so much time and energy and money and social currency and all the things in between. So the more intentional we can get about every single decision we make, every single conversation we have, every single piece of copy and content that we write, then the better off we are going to be as sustainable leaders. And also the better the brand experience is going to be, because it's going to be more consistent. It's going to be more sustainable. You're going to be building a legacy of impact and alignment, and you're going to be able to pivot with intention rather than just kind of like blowing in the wind based on all of the mayhem that is going on always. So yeah, the decision-making just feels really, really special and important and highly, highly tactical in ways that, pure strategy is not always.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. What is coming to my mind right now is when I started this podcast, I got asked a lot by other strategists that were out there if I'm going to use it to basically book guests that I'm going to sell to. And that's a really popular method for podcasting. And it literally makes me want to vomit, the whole concept of that, because it's so off brand for me. No, I want to have meaningful conversations on my podcast that other people can learn and grow from. And if someone wants to work with me, they know I'm there. But by no means am I going to book clients to then sell to them, because that feels so hugely out of integrity. And I can tell you that if I didn't listen to my own boundary on that and I tried that on this podcast, nobody would listen because it would feel so weird and awkward. So I feel like it's so incredibly critical. And so that was a hard line in the sand. And maybe it would make it easier for me to make more money off my podcast if I did that, but I'd have to compromise a value. And I don't like that. So the path I chose is sponsorships. So that's how I'm going to drive revenue through my podcast is great. Let's throw some sponsors on here. Let's make them some money. Let's make sure they're in alignment with what I love and what I like to do. And that feels so good and easy to sell. So that's an example that I think applies exactly to what you had just said.
Definitely. And okay, so you've opened the door to sponsorships. How do you decide said sponsorships? Well, values alignment again, audience alignment again. Would your audience want, XYZ product on this end of the spectrum? Okay, no, perfect. Then they're an easy no. You're not going to tarnish your reputation for X number of dollars, right? Because in the long run, it's not worth it. So what's the worst case scenario in that decision-making tree? Okay, well, you could go down this rabbit hole and this rabbit hole and this rabbit hole. And not only would you have no listeners, you would also have no future sponsors. You would have no, client base. Your audience would disappear from your email, et cetera, et cetera. Or what's the best case scenario for perfect alignment? Well, then it'll open this door to this and that. And then you can be an advisor to that sponsor, and et cetera, right? So the rabbit holes are endless. It's simply a matter of listening to, what did I say is important? Who did I say I'm aiming to serve? Okay, great. Let's go in that direction.
Yes, 100%. And it feels easy and fun when you do it out of alignment instead of forcing yourself into something. And that's what I always try to remind myself of. So I'm curious, the words you use is conscious marketing and value aligned business, right? So I think we're talking a lot about the value aligned business, and I love that so much. And that's how I make decisions too. So this conversation is so fun for me. Let's talk a little bit about conscious marketing as you define it, and how people can use it to really grow their brand, their business, et cetera.
Yeah. So conscious marketing is something I sort of stumbled upon years ago, and I ranked for it on SEO. So I've sort of kept going with it. But really what I mean by it, I actually came to this idea of social impact through business via the lens of a conscious consumer. So probably, 10 plus, probably 15 years ago, I went down this rabbit hole of conscious consumerism, where I figured out that so much of fast fashion is out of alignment with my values, both in the labor, in the sustainability factor, all the factors. It's out of alignment. Okay. I also discovered veganism and zero waste and non-toxic living and all the things that are then related and sort of a chain reaction, and all under this umbrella of conscious consumerism. So this idea of thinking before you consume, thinking before you buy, voting with your dollars. And so when I thought about who I want to be consulting with, who I want to be partnering with, the platform I want to be building, I wanted to be talking about conscious business, thinking about business in a way that is, in fact, thoughtful. I've toyed around with positioning myself as someone who works with deep thinkers, deeply caring overthinkers, people who really, really care about the business they're building, the people they're working with, and the legacy that they are creating in the process. So for me, conscious marketing is the marketing, the outreach, the getting your name, brand, offers out there, but in a way that isn't just willy-nilly, isn't just best practice, isn't just, well, I read this in a book once, or I heard this on a podcast once, so let me just try that. It really is thinking very, very deeply about that values alignment, that audience alignment, and that big picture vision that you're working toward. In some ways, it's a lot easier because it's the path of least resistance in that you are most motivated to do it and you are attracting exactly what you want to be attracting and repelling exactly what you don't want to be attracting. But also sometimes it's harder to be conscious. Sometimes it's easier to just kind of like slap something on there or, well, this person said I should have a course, so let me just create a course. To what end is a really great question to ask yourself. So conscious marketing for me is simply being thoughtful about the way you're showing up, what you're showing up for, and who you're showing up for.
Yes, I love that so much. And I feel like it's, like you said, it's easier to execute because you're motivated and because you're aligned. But I will also say it's scary for a lot of people, I think, to be like, this is what I stand for. These are my views. This is how I'm going to communicate, especially when we're talking personal brands, because a lot of this is going to apply to personal brands, but also to products. Like one of my sponsors is Jason Mark, and it's a shoe cleaning company, but they're B Corp certified, non-toxic. You could literally drink the shoe cleaner. And I spray it inside and it's shot in kids' eyes and on dogs. And I love it for that reason because, at the end of the day, it's a very technical soapy water that works really well, but it's not going to hurt anything that it touches. So for me, it's like that felt really good because I also care about what I put in my body, what I use on my skin, and I'm paying attention. I'm definitely I'm reading the ingredients label. I'm reading the inserts. I'm critically thinking before I choose anything. So for me, that just feels so easy. And when I recorded their ad, it felt so easy and fun. I'm like, oh, I love this product. It's amazing. But it also sometimes, especially depending on what you're standing for, can feel isolating in some ways too. So it's an interesting push and pull, but I love it. And I think it's fun. And you can do it for products or for personal brands. So that's been my experience with it, is just being like, I'm going to be bold. I'm going to talk about what I care about.
Yeah. And I think it's like a muscle, right? The more you exercise it, the more you realize it doesn't have to be scary. The more you realize there are other people who feel that way. The more you can find communities of like-minded people. You want to avoid echo chambers, to some extent, but also find your people. There are other people who want to do things the way you want to do them, who do care about the things that you care about. And it's just sort of like the green beauty movement in general, it's almost becoming the norm now. So much so that greenwashing is super prevalent, right? Everyone wants to be claiming to be green, even though 10, 15 years ago, no one wanted to be crunchy, homemade, home kitchen. Oh, that's not going to work, right? So there is absolutely potential to find your people if you are willing and able to be that bold voice. And it doesn't have to be bold in a slap them across the face kind of way. It can be quiet and it can be firm but gentle. It can be whatever voice you want to have, and whatever reflection of your values you want to hold. It doesn't need to be, standing on the street with a megaphone if that's not your brand. But the only way to find your people is by putting out there who your people are, who you want to be finding.
Yes. I can tell you, I'm going to tell you a really funny story.
Yeah.
Okay. So my husband's name is Andy. And when we were first dating, that's sort of when, we're probably I've been eating clean for probably 20 years at this point. So I was one of those early adopters, which is my personality. And I also I'm the worst person ever to try to convince in your marketing because I go down all the rabbit holes. I look at the sources. I check the facts. I see who's paying you money. That is just my personality. And I've always been that way. So when Andy and I moved in together, probably 17 years ago. And, now we're going grocery shopping together and we're doing all these things. So I was like, okay, well, let's go to the grocery store together so that I can basically share with you what's important to me if you're going to be doing shopping on my behalf, because I want to make sure we're still eating clean. And typical guy, 20s, is like, what are you talking about? Right? So we go to the grocery store. I think it was an Albertsons or something. And I was like, okay, let's start with yogurt. Right? So I went to the yogurt aisle and I turned the labels around and I showed them what I cared about and all these things. And, I'm like, I only have full fat. The non-fat diet is giving people dementia. So we only do full fat. You don't need added sugar. You can use honey and all of these different things. And I was like, so go ahead and find which one like you think would like match. Kind of, it was like a little bit of an adventure. It took him like 20 minutes and he was so mad. And he was like, that's it. You're doing all the grocery shopping. He's like, I agree with you, but this hurts my head so much. I'm out of here. All of the things. It was hysterical. And fast forward 17 years later now, he's better at it than I am. Like,
Really?
yeah. Oh my gosh. When my kids bring home snacks or something, he's like flipping it around and is like, no go, right? Like in our family, we celebrated when Ren died. Like 4 was removed from all of the public school lunches and stuff. So it's just like real or red dye 9, 8, 9. I don't know. All the dyes are bad. So anyway, it was just funny. So I just share this story because nothing bad came of this. It was like good. I shared my values. I stayed intact. And it was like this, great thing that my family cares about. So I think it just goes back to being like, you can hold the line and be gracious about it. And also remember that like you don't have to put others down to support what you view. Right?
Yeah. And you can be such a positive force, right? So now he cares about that. And now you've instilled that in your children. And like you can be the trendsetter, even if that's not necessarily in your nature, right? Simply by putting out, this is what I care about, other people will inherently care about it. And if not, they're not your perfect fit people. Or then you just compartmentalize, right? You know where the boundary is and how people can fit around it. And so, if it would have been a deal breaker for either of you to not be able to agree on yogurt, well, then you go your separate ways, right? But if you're able to make it work and over time that boundary ebbs and flows, then great, right? It's the exact same in business. Business is just relationship. It just feels a little bit higher stakes, right?
Yeah, 100%. The higher stakes part of it. I would absolutely agree. All right. So let's talk about your evolution, your pivot from those one-to-one consulting offers that you have, which I'm sure you still do. But I'm excited to share with my audience a little bit about the membership model that you've created, because we are talking about revenue building on the show, people. So this is important. So through your model, it's recurring revenue. It allows you the flexibility to provide the best value to those who are in the membership and also still do mom duty with a 2 and 4-year-old, which is really intense. So let's talk a little bit about your pivot, your conscious decision to pivot, and the impact that the members will feel because you're in alignment.
So I started my newsletter, I think in 2021, maybe even before that. But it has always been my favorite part of my business. Always. Since it has existed, I have been outrageously consistent. The only thing I've been consistent in. I find it so cathartic. I find such positive feedback. I just love writing my newsletter, and it has ebbed and flowed over the years in terms of format and content. But I realized this is the thing that I love the most. I have so much I want to pour into this. Okay, how could I potentially monetize this or just maximize my time and energy and also the value I provide? So I took my weekly newsletter and I did a survey. I did do some market research with people already in my orbit, and I figured out things that they care about and, again, how that matches with what I care about. And what's nice about market research is you're not a journalist, right? You can ask leading questions. You can ask sort of, I'm double checking here. Is this what you want? Or this is what I want. Would anyone want this? That sort of thing. So I ended up creating this subscription that is month by month, and twice a month I have long form newsletter. So it is curated resources, and I start off the month by having some sort of deep reflection. Occasionally it's a sort of how-to, but most of the time it's a little bit of a meta, here's what I'm learning, doing, thinking about in my business, experiencing, and here's how it can apply to you, right? So that really deep, empathetic, you're not in this alone. This is hard. You're not imagining it. And I added in, which my newsletter never had before, prompts to really get people to be reflecting. Okay, here's what Ashlee's experiencing, or here's, a story that she pulled, but how does this apply to my business? What do I care about? So every month I have those prompts that go along with that. And Then the other email of the month to this subscription is a bunch of resources, just juicy little things from around the internet that are feel good, that are useful, that can spark something in their life. Whether it's, a nonprofit that they want to start because they saw this article, or whether it's a tech tool that they didn't know existed and now this is going to solve all their problems, or it is a thought piece that then they can bring to their client, and that's a relationship that they're able to forge, and just giving them sort of a toolkit of things to keep those creative juices flowing. And then a few other elements in that especially curated one. And then I also wanted to bake in some sort of personal contact with me and some sort of community element. So I do have shout outs to community members, both within the subscription and to my public newsletter, which is obviously much, much larger. That has always been one of my favorite parts of my newsletter anyway. I call it Founder Friends. And so now I have a subscriber shout out element to that to really be able to amplify people who have invested in me and my business and who I already know are aligned. So I'm always eager to spread the word about them and their resources. And then I do one-on-one audits every quarter if they claim it. So, hey, I'm working on my bio. I'm wanting to redo my LinkedIn profile. I'm working on this offer and I really want to nail the positioning. And I give first impressions feedback, and that is one-on-one asynchronous. So it fits in my schedule with my kiddos. And then the holy community element is something I've also experimented with. So I was doing closed private calls just for subscribers, and I actually reimagined it to sort of be private public. So it's also part lead magnet in that I host these conscious crowdsourcing gatherings once a month. So anyone from any industry, from any walk of life can come to these and give value and receive value. So we have a theme every month that they're able to share. They're able to absorb, they're able to commiserate, connect. You never know when you're going to be in the room with that perfect fit person who is exactly who you need as a collaborator, a client, an advocate, whatever it is. And that way, the subscribers, as I'm building it, have a much larger pool of people to crowdsource ideas from, because it's not just closed to this insular group. I wanted to make it as affordable as possible, but also scale my time and my energy. And it's been really fun to experiment with. And it's been also something that holds me accountable, because I do need that external accountability to be able to show up.
Oh, I love that. The external accountability. We're going to come back to that in 1 second. So, but everybody listening, use code. We'll put the link in the show notes, but you get 1 month free. Ashlee has given that to every one of my listeners. So we'll put the link in the show notes and you use promo code Rascals and you'll get that first month. So don't forget to do that. It's in the show notes. All right, Rascals, let me ask you this. How much money have you wasted replacing shoes, sneakers, or even bags that could have lasted way longer if only you'd been taken better care of them? I know for me, running from meetings to kids' activities, life gets messy fast. And that's why I always have Jason Mark Quick Wipes on hand. Jason Mark is trusted care to help you get the most out of what you wear. They're not just about cleaning. They're about protecting what you love while protecting the planet. Their wipes are now 100% plant-based and plastic-free, made from renewable lyocell fibers. They're individually wrapped so you can toss them in your bag, your car, or like me, your kids' backpacks. And it's not just convenience. Jason Mark is part of the worldwide B Corp movement, meeting the highest standards for social and environmental impact. They're EPA Safer Choice certified, so you know the formulas are safe for your family. And their products are USDA, bio-based, and certified biodegradable. That means no harmful junk like PFAS or VOCs. Just high-performance care that keeps your stuff looking fresh while doing right by the planet. Personally, as a busy mom and entrepreneur, Quick Wipes are my favorite. They've saved my sneakers from coffee spills, playground dust, you name it. One wipe and I'm ready to walk into my next meeting looking sharp. So here's the deal. Go to jasonmark.com and use promo code RevenueRascals at checkout for 25% off your order. One time per customer. Again, that's jasonmark.com, code RevenueRascals. And remember, this podcast is free. Thanks to sponsors like Jason Mark, I'm ungating sales strategies people pay me six figures for. So go support them, grab your quick wipes or your favorite product, and keep your kicks looking fresh. I want to go back though to that external accountability that you need. And so this is a phenomenon to me a little bit of people who are driven by this. So if people give me money, like I am now accountable to them, right? That's a really easy line and dots to connect and all of the things. So I love that. But let's talk a little bit about like psychologically, if you've ever explored that for yourself of what that looks like. Is it only when people give you money? Does that drive the accountability? Or what does it look like for you?
Yeah, it's not necessary. For sure, if they give me money, I'm like extra going to make sure I do not miss anything, right? I really take that to heart. But it's even the idea of like, posting on social or sharing to your email list. Okay, I'm going to do this. And for me, that is enough external accountability, even if there's not, a direct accountability buddy, staring me in the eyeballs on a live call. If I say I'm going to do something publicly, integrity is one of my top values. So if I say I'm going to show up, simply having said it into the void is enough to hold me accountable. I also just recently discovered ADHD in my brain. So that like motivation gap and that accountability gap is something that I never knew I had until entrepreneurship, motherhood converged. And also, yes,
true.
That is why there are so many women in their 30s now. Yes. But,
yes.
But I also like always viewed myself as a self-starter, like on any job description, it always said like, must be a self-starter. And I was like, well, check that box. And I am in a job capacity, right? Because there's external accountability. You have a boss, you have a team, you have an organization that you're holding up. But in entrepreneurship, if you say, oh, I really want to launch this thing, or I really want to have X number of conversations, who's holding you accountable? No one but yourself, right? Unless you have a team, unless you have a board, unless you put it out there to your email list. So when I committed to launching my free newsletter, I did it every other week at first because that was my capacity. I was so afraid of showing up in people's news inboxes. And then I had so much to say. I did it weekly. Same thing with my podcast. And it just evolved because I knew there were people on the other end, even if it was one person. And obviously has grown over time to be much more than one person. So
yes. Oh, I love that. So I think that we're driven kind of the same way. I also have ADHD and my son has it and my daughter probably does too. We'll find out soon. It's genetic if you didn't know, people. However, once you understand how someone with that brain is motivated and accountable, it is a crazy, crazy superpower, but you have to lock it in. So for me, it's the jokes in the house that like if mom's been in the kitchen, who's going to go shut all the cabinets because I leave them all open because I forget. Like that's like a very ADHD thing. But you know what? I find what drives me to be accountable is I actually love putting out fires. This is something about me. Okay. So the more serious of a business crisis somebody is happening, the more interesting it is to me.
Yeah. It's a bigger challenge, right?
It's a bigger
ADHD
challenge.
Brains love challenge.
I love it. And if it's just kind of like a basic thing, I'm kind of like, meh. I could figure it out, but it's not exciting. So for me, there is a bit of my commitment goes to a little bit of adrenaline. So it's like, okay, I've committed to doing 2 podcast episodes a week. People will know if I don't do that. So that's a bit of an adrenaline rush, right? Or like, okay, great. This is a big, juicy problem. I can't wait to roll my sleeves up and make this happen. So that's how I'm drawn to it. And then clearly, yes. The 4 agreements. I talked about this recently on another podcast too. It's like only say that you're going to do something if you're going to do it because your word is so incredibly important. And I think that comes back to everything we're talking about right now. And I just find so much joy and excitement knowing that you get to build your business on all of these things, like what drives you, what motivates you, like all of your, alignment around this. So I'm happy that you're offering a space for people to explore that and do some of the deep thinking that our rushed life just really doesn't allow you to do much.
Well, and another reason I went with a subscription and just experimented with it is because, especially with 2025 just on our heels, people were really hesitant to buy large ticket one-on-one offers. They were really struggling either financially or just with the fear of struggling financially. So I liked the idea of, okay, here's a one-to-many. You want to DIY it? Here's a curated way to DIY it rather than just going to ChatGPT or just scouring the interwebs for whatever might come up. Having a sort of go-to voice that will resonate with you. And again, you don't have to agree with everything it says, even if it's a direct mentorship or advising or coaching or consulting container, or even if it is ChatGPT who's spitting something out. Sometimes in the face of something that we don't agree with, we are so much more sure of what we do know to be true for ourselves. So it's not about resonating perfectly every single time with every single person in my orbit. It's simply giving them a starting point, a strong foothold to be able to figure out, okay, how do I make that next decision? What is that next direction I want to be going in? Because it is constantly changing. That is the only thing we know for sure, is that the market, ourselves, our situation will always be changing. So how can we get out ahead of that and really practice that skill of adaptability while also trying to be as consistent as possible with the things that do matter to us?
So we've talked about this quite a bit through the podcast, but I want to ask you directly, what's a belief about business or growth you strongly disagree with that most people accept as true and finite?
For sure, the idea that there is a single way to do it. If anyone ever tells you this is the only way to scale, grow, build, I would run in the opposite direction. If they say this is the best way, okay, maybe. And again, maybe for them and their circumstances and their audience and their capacity. Maybe they didn't have 2 small children at home, or maybe they don't have a value of prioritizing people as their profit builds, right? The idea that there is any prescriptive way to do anything is categorically opposed to any way I view business.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on the same one. All right. So my favorite question that we wrap up all of my episodes with my amazing guests is, what is the most rascal thing that you have done in business where you disrupted, broke rules, or just innovated in a way that shook things up?
Okay, so I have an official answer and also a sort of universal answer. So the universal one is just growing a business, sustaining a business while having small children. Because as any mother who runs a business will attest, whether you have full-time childcare, whether you have zero childcare, it is so much. So that's my universal answer. And then personally, in my own journey, I would say the most kind of like audacious thing I did was pitching myself to position myself as an expert before I had the receipts, the formal receipts. So I went on a podcast pitching spree years and years and years ago. And I didn't have, 55 podcast episodes under my belt. I just had a really great pitch and a really authentic approach to the host. And a lot of people said yes. Or pitching to speak to communities. Maybe I hadn't ever spoken to a community before, or I hadn't ever done this topic, but I had a working relationship with the host, or I had a deep understanding of their audience. And so it worked, right? So I think it's actually easier to gain traction when you put yourself out there in a way that feels really aligned. I know I can provide value. Let me just put this out there and see what sticks, see who it sticks with. So that's my word of encouragement, and also the most rascal thing I did years ago.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Building a business as a mother. Woo! It's sticky to say the least, but I am so grateful we have that opportunity to still have a career. And, my business is way beyond my wildest dreams. Like, it is everything I could have ever wanted. It's bigger than I ever thought it would be. But, it allows me to still be the type of mom that I want to be. And to be clear, like, I don't homeschool. My kids have active social lives. They're out of the house all day, every day now because they're older, right? But like, I want to be as present and as possibly as I can. Like, I want to be able to raise my hand for the field trips. I want to be able to drive my son and his friends down to the mall in the middle of the day if that's what they want to do. Like all these things. So I think it's just really, really important. Well, Ashlee, this was an amazing conversation. I am so excited for people to connect with you that have not met you before now. We'll make sure everything's in the show notes. But before I wrap up, is there anything that you would like to say before I hit stop?
First, thank you so much. And also, I'm super curious to get feedback on Conscious Marketing Curated. So I really hope everyone takes up their 1 month free because I would love the feedback.
I love it. Awesome. Well, everybody listen up. We're giving you some free goods that are very valuable. So go lock them in. And Ashlee, thank you so much again. And I'm sure that we will talk again soon. Thanks for listening to Revenue Rascals, where we turn bold ideas into predictable revenue and prove that breaking the rules can still build empires. If you love what you heard, do me a favor. Tap the links in the show notes to support our sponsors. They're the ones keeping this show free so I can keep ungating the six-figure strategies that help you scale faster, lead smarter, and take more freedom home with you. And hey, if you think you'd make an incredible guest or know someone who's built something worth studying, email me at hello@michelleterpstra.com. And until next time, stay sharp, stay bold, and stay just a little bit rascal.